All right, awesome. We are live and welcome back again, Corbin Brasher with the Capital Agency, and so excited to have you. And we are just following up. So, hopefully, you saw us last week talking about insurance rate changes. And we ended on such a great note about dwelling coverages and things of that nature. And so, I wanted to invite Corbin back to talk about that in a little bit more detail because I
Yeah.
do think it's so important. And at the end of last week, obviously we were talking before the holidays. We're like, somebody is probably burning their house down with a turkey, a Christmas tree, a space heater, like something. And so reviewing these dwelling limits is so important. So, Corbin, welcome
Yeah.
back. Thank you for
Thanks.
being here with us.
Yeah. Thanks again for
Yeah.
having me. And I will say, so I used to be in the fire department actually here in Spotsy. I was local, just volunteer about 3.5 years.
Yeah,
And
that's
one
awesome.
of the biggest seasons for us was when winter hit because folks never cleaned out their chimneys. So when they would start fires in their fireplaces. And so this is the time when fires happen. So make
Yes.
sure you check, definitely clean your fireplaces each year. And then also make sure you check your insurance in case anything, unfortunate does happen that you are covered.
Yes, and I won't derail this conversation. However, there
Mhm.
are a lot of chimney sweeps out there who aren't fully certified, or the company is
Yep.
certified, but they send an uncertified sweep. So if you guys need a recommendation, make sure to comment below or
Yep.
send me a DM because I've got a great person who is fully certified. But Corbin, I'm going to throw up your slides here
Yep.
and yeah. So talk to us a little bit about this. I know this has been huge, and especially as, like we talked about last week at the tail end there, with everything increasing so rapidly and during COVID and, the
Yep.
big boom and all the real estate changes, a lot of us don't have proper homeowners insurance coverage as far as like, especially like rebuild and dwelling limits. So let you dive in.
Yeah. So what this small presentation is kind of on, it's about because our last presentation was kind of on the overall market of insurance. So how does overall rates are affected? This kind of transition to the individual person and then how their individual rates are classified. And
Awesome.
part of that goes into, part of the reason is your coverages, which is part of the presentation. So we'll get to that as we go. But
Yeah.
I've broken it down into four main categories, and then I'll kind of talk about them each. And then, obviously, if anybody has questions after this, please put them in the comments. Please email me, text me. Happy to jump on calls and answer any questions you may have because obviously we are kind of cursorily going through it. So if you have
Yeah.
more in-depth information you want to, you want to need on, just call us. We're happy to help. All
Awesome.
right. So the first thing that comes into play is your location. Where are you buying your house? And each carrier, what they do is they essentially rate zip codes. So you could literally buy a house right next to your neighbor, and if they are in a different zip code or a different county, their rates could be wildly different than yours. And that's
Okay.
merely because they can't go so specific as to each home address rating. They just do it based on a zip code. They have a general rating based per zip code.
Okay.
Um, and then what about your protection class? So this is one of the biggest factors. Not a lot of people know what it means. And protection class just means what is your availability to fire suppression? So if you have a fire, what's the response time from the fire department? How close are your fire
Mhm.
hydrants? Essentially, what's your response time? One
Okay.
thing I think they should factor in that I don't think they do is is there a body of water nearby? Because technically, if there's a body of water nearby, like a pond near your home, even though you may not have a fire hydrant, most rural fire departments, like I said, I was in a rural fire department, we were trained on a pumper. So what we would do is we would pump water out of ponds or bodies of water and then use that to, obviously put out fires. So
Okay.
I don't, like I said, I don't think those are factored into protection class, but maybe it's something we could appeal down the road long term.
Yeah.
And then how close are you to the coast or a waterway? Those also vary your coverage availability. So if you're closer to the coast, let's say, you're Virginia Beach, you're Myrtle Beach, somewhere Outer Banks, a lot of insurers won't actually provide a wind coverage for those. You have to go through a lot of states, like North Carolina has their own North Carolina wind program that you can get from the state, which is similar to the NFIP program for floods.
Okay.
So we won't go in that weeds yet, but all that factors into your rate is where's your
Okay.
home. So that's pretty much the most of the location. They do factor in some of your topography. So if you have a home that's built on a steep hill or incline or cliff or something like that, that also goes into your rates because it goes into your dwelling coverage because it costs more to rebuild the home due to the topography.
Makes sense.
All right. Now, the thing you're buying, your home. So this is probably the biggest factor. Okay. So how old's your home? Obviously newer construction homes are going to get better rates than older because they were built with, higher codes. The codes are probably stricter as you've gone on. Things are typically built more safer. And there's a lot more preventative measures put in place. Like the new homes have some sensors in their water sensors and things like that. A lot more homes come with security systems built in, things like that.
Yes.
So those go into it. How old your roof, your HVAC systems are.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
a big one.
Yeah, it's so you get, if you're ever thinking about you're buying a home and you ever want to, the age or the roof is kind of on the downside. Maybe it's something you can work with Jessica, who I'm sure can help you. And negotiate maybe some kind of subsidy for a roof. And that would also help your insurance prices. And then whether you have pools, trampolines, those are big risks. Trampolines are one of the biggest claim makers for insurance carriers, and a lot of them won't take them. So if you have a pool or a trampoline, better make sure it's fenced in. Better make sure you have a netting around the trampoline. And then certain, animals, anything with a bite history, any dogs with a bite history are going to likely be excluded. Some carriers will flex with you and work on, just doing a liability waiver for animals and still let you write. But if your dog or animal causes any injuries, those aren't covered. And then how much acreage is on your home. And then various items like fireplaces, wood burning stoves factor in. And then one big thing that, it's almost against you, but it shouldn't be, is the claims history of the home. So if the home has a claims history, that gets factored in. Not every carrier, that's not a broad stroke, but most of your major carriers will factor in the claims history of the house.
And I think that's tough here in Virginia because we are a buyer beware state, that if something it's in the history of the house, but it's been remedied. So for example, like the basement flooded, but it's been remedied and it hasn't happened again. Often, like, the seller doesn't have to tell us, we don't have to know, nobody has to know. And so sometimes it's not until we're under contract and the new purchaser is getting insurance. And then all of a sudden that claims history might come up, and so that's always a sneaky thing that comes up sometimes.
Yeah, Ken. And what we can do is there's certain ways that we can push insurance carriers, not push them, but we can work with them, I guess is a better way to term that, we can call them and say, hey, it was remedied. And what we can do is see if the seller may be willing to provide some documentation that it was remedied. Because if we can show that it was remedied and that the cause of the leak or fire, or, most likely be water damage, because fires most of the time are total losses. But the water, if it's been remedied and that issue that caused it has been repaired and we can supply proof to the insurance carrier, we can likely get a reduction and get that claim wiped off. So it's not charged against you.
That's awesome.
That's
usually
something. Yeah, it's something to know. I mean, like I said, and that's one of the differences. If you go online and get a quote, you're not going to have these options. But if you come to a broker, we can massage things and work with the carriers to try to get better rates for you.
Okay.
All right. Now, the insurer. So the person, the people in the home is also a big factor. And number one is claims history. That is probably the number one factor. A lot of carriers, they have what they call an insurance rating.
Okay.
Built in. Now we get this. It's not a credit report or anything like that. But all it is it shows how has this person been as an insured throughout their insurance claims career. So how many times have they made claims? How many times have they paid on time? How many times have they missed payments or been canceled or anything like that? All that factors into your overall insurance score. The higher your score, the more discount you get on your rating or your premiums. And there's a lot of psychology that goes into ratings. So like marital status plays a factor because if you're married, insurance companies, for whatever reason, they usually give you a discount because they think most married folks are more responsible. If you have children, that goes into it, depending on the age. So younger kids obviously don't necessarily count against you or factor in much. And if anything, it almost may help you because it shows that you are more responsible. You have kids, you're responsible for a being. But as they become 16, 17, that could also maybe not be great because then they could also be causing damages. And it's especially not great for your auto rates. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but, and then, your credit score does play a part of it as well. We
Okay.
don't do hard pulls. Everything that we do credit wise is just a soft pull. It doesn't even show on your credit report. And we don't get a credit score. All it does is it factors into that insurance score. And it's
Gotcha.
kind of in the background. We don't know what it is. It's not like we get information about it. It all is in the background.
Okay.
And then one big thing is tenure at past carrier. That's another big thing. So if you stay at your current carrier 3+ years, let's say 2+ years, other carriers are going to want you because they see you as a long-term person, so as a
Mm.
long-term client. So if the client or the carrier you're with, like a lot of folks, I think, for example, let's say my dad. My dad was with Allstate for 40 years.
Oh my gosh.
And so what we say, me and Jeff, my business partner, say, the longer you stay, the more you pay. So he was paying astronomical amounts just because he didn't want to shop it. He's like, that's good, I'm good. We cut his well in half, if not more than half, and got him much higher coverages because this new carrier was like, oh man, there is somebody who's been with their carrier. So we'll get them, and then they'll stay with us forever,
Yeah.
But no, after 3 years, you know what you should do? You should shop it again. 2-3 years, you ought to be shopping it again. And
Okay.
then that will give you, if you shop every 2 to 3 years, that is going to get you the best rates to the tenure of your insurance.
Okay. So that's a sweet spot.
2 or 3 years is sweet. And that's why the homes in Cortland Park, our neighborhood, is great because right now our homes are 3-4 years old. You've got a
Yeah.
tenure with your carrier that you've built up most likely, and you've still got a newer construction home where they're not worried about the roofs causing leaks, or they're not worried about HVACs causing electrical fires.
Right.
So this is, anybody in our neighborhood, listen, this is the best time for us to shop, or anybody in a 3-4-year-old house is also a great time to shop those insurance rates. And the final thing is the selection of your liability limits. So
Okay.
on your past policies, if you've had higher liability limits, it goes to showing you as a responsible person.
Okay.
And honestly, one other thing we should throw in there that I didn't think about is if you get a quote early. So any realtors or lenders out there who you have clients shopping for insurance, the earlier you can get them to the broker, to your insurance broker, your insurance agent, your partner, the better for them because we can always get 10 to 15% off with a advanced quote discount.
Awesome. Okay, that's huge to know because I feel like that's not, I mean, I know that's not something I push my clients on. So I think that's really important to know
Yeah.
also, especially every little bit helps,
Yeah.
you
And
know?
10 to 15%, if you're paying $1,000, that's $100 off your insurance.
Yeah,
So
that's big.
all those add up. So if you've got, I won't go on, but if you have all that added up, you could save 30-40% off your insurance
Yeah,
just by,
that's huge.
yeah. So and that's why, you have credit coaches and you have things like that who help you build your credit. We can help build your insurance credit. We can help build your insurance, your whole package. So that way for the future, you
Yeah.
are going to be paying less than you would be if you just kept on your current trajectory. So we can cap and keep you down at a reasonable level throughout your entire insurance career. And the only other thing that factors into it is, it's just the policy itself. What
Okay.
coverages you pick, how much your dwelling coverages are, the liability limits, any various endorsements you add. And then one big thing, make sure you get replacement cost on your home, not actual cash value. And also for your property, your personal property, because just replacement cost, they're going to buy you new stuff, even though your stuff is used.
Okay.
Actual cash value, they're just going to give you the cash for the lesser value of your items because they are used. So
Okay.
worth it. I mean, it is a little bit more, but worth it all day.
Oh, that's huge. I mean, I can speak from personal experience. Many moons ago in a different state, so no one panic. My house was broken into, and it was really unfortunate because we were also in the middle of moving, so our
Oh.
stuff was nicely boxed for people to steal, and so we had some like big ticket items get stolen, and we thought we had replacement coverage, but we were responsible for providing serial numbers off of like TVs and things, and then also like approximate age, approximate cost of what we purchased it for. And so, and that was with that was with an insurance company that like a lot of military love because of very different, reasons. And we had a terrible experience with it because there was big ticket items that we lost that were, some of them were even like new, like 6 months old, big TV, which back then were more expensive than they are
Yes, they
now.
were.
But, it was like a real kick in the gut because here we are, we're buying our first home and moving, and our house gets
Yeah.
our rental gets robbed, and now our insurance wasn't
Oh,
what we thought it was. And so I think that's really important to be
yeah.
reviewing. And I know that's something you probably say, okay, well, do you want this or this? And here's the,
Yep.
and again, it's something that when you're clicking through online that you don't get like, you're like, oh, well, you click one and your price is this much. I'm like, well, if I click this one, it's this much. I'm going to click that one.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
there's not that personal connection. But I just think like we started out with, it's so important to know like what affects it, all the different pieces that you just went through for us, Corbin, but also, again, just stressing, even if you bought your house a year ago and you're like, I'm probably good, you're probably not good
Yep.
because the cost of materials was still going up so
Yep.
exponentially. We're finally starting to see like lumber come down a little bit, but other prices are still very, very high. Like any builder will be like, oh, let me tell you. So I think it's just so important for everyone. And me too, it's on my like sticky note right now. I was
Yeah.
like, Corbin, I need to have you shop for me because I haven't looked, in a while either. And so those dwelling coverage limits are most likely too low.
Yeah.
And even if they're not, still, do we have all the coverage? Are you paying too much? Is your carrier increasing their rates in a overly significant way? Those are all different pieces that you can shop all at one time
Yeah.
with Corbin and his
Yeah.
partner and make sure that you're addressing like all those different factors.
Yep.
'Cause I know even like, correct me if I'm wrong, Corbin, I know that you have to have cover, like, well, you should have coverage for like your sump pump, for example, but some
Yes.
providers will just say, oh, okay, yeah, you're covered.
Yeah.
And people don't think to ask, well, like how, like there's different coverage limits depending on the
Yes.
provider, right?
And I think, did we do a video? I think we did a video about water coverage and path.
We
There's so
sure
much
did.
nuance to that. Yeah, you should go.
Yes.
Anybody who's listening to this, please go back on Jessica page and find that video because
Yeah.
there's so much
Comment will
nuance
text
to
you.
water that
Yes.
if you do just go online and start plugging in numbers and I'm telling you, you need to talk to somebody
I
because
was
there's
just
so much.
talking. Yeah, I was just talking to a client who's under contract. We're closing soon. And I was like, did you get the sump pump coverage? And she said, yes, we did. I said, okay, for how much? What's
Yes.
your coverage limit? And she was like, oh, I don't know. They just said like, they just checked the box. Like, yes. I'm like, you need to find out because if it's like a 5,000 or 7,000
Yep.
or even 10,000, like that doesn't touch, that maybe gets you the cleanup and the demo. That
Yep.
doesn't even touch putting your basement back together
No.
as someone who, again,
Yeah.
I've had all the things, have had a basement flood. It does not even touch it. And again, it was something I was like, just like, I want the coverage. Yep, check. Well, the max was 10,000 of my coverage and for that piece. So we can cover that in more detail. But I think it's important just to know if you think your dwelling coverage is right and you're still like, I think that's right, have Corbin put eyes on it or whoever that you trust, because there's so many things that are,
Yes.
there's a lot swirling in our market right now. If you're watching the news, there's a lot going on in the world. It's affecting all different pieces of every industry. And so
Yes.
it's really important to realize while you're getting those notifications in your inbox and you're ignoring them like I am, things
Yep.
are going, the world's still going on. So, but well, awesome, Corbin.
Yes.
Hey, I appreciate you again joining me. And
Yeah.
if you guys have questions, you missed this live and you have questions, drop them in the comments. We will make sure to get to you, or reach out to us directly and make sure that you are, let me throw up Corbin's information here. There we go. Information below here. Please make sure you're reaching out to him directly too, and getting more detail to your unique situation. So
Yeah, I appreciate it, Jessica. Thanks for having me on. I look forward to doing this again. And like I said, if anybody needs help with anything insurance, auto, home, anything personal lines, just let us know. We're here to help. We'll make sure
awesome.
we walk you through everything and then help any way we can.
Cool. Thank you. See you
Yeah.
soon.